This is a Marketing for Learning podcast, the only podcast in the world that's guaranteed to increase your knowledge, skills, and capabilities when it comes to marketing for learning. Plus, there's a gratuitous amount of pineapples. You're welcome.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Marketing for Learning podcast. Weird one, if you're watching this, we're next to each other. We're in the same room, in a big room. We are at Learning Live.
Okay, I'm going to hold mine like this.
You're weird. But we wanted to come and talk to you today about a topic that has come up in some of our sessions. We only did one, but it came up in our session, and also with a few people that have come over, and that's about the market research piece of personas and marketing as a whole.
Yeah.
We've had almost two extremes, haven't we? We've had people being like, what's research? What do you mean? What do you mean I had to do it? And then someone told us their personas were based purely on assumptions, which really heartbreak.
And tears.
And then we also had somebody being like, well, I ain't got the time. So we just wanted to talk super quickly about why research is important and how you should be doing it. So I've whittled on. We're together. What do you think, Ash? Why is it important?
I mean, in a very succinct way, the person who came and told me that they don't really have time to do the research behind their personas, I literally said back, well, you need to make time then.
Mm-hmm.
Because ultimately, if this is going to be the basis of everything you do from there, you want to make sure that it's accurate and it's not based on assumptions and that you're just guessing. Because what I've found, at least with my clients, and I don't know if it's the same for you, is there is a distinct lack of understanding in terms of actual learner sentiment, but attitudes towards learning, the organizational culture in terms of what people want versus the reality of the organizational culture. So like, great that you have an EVP and you're selling this cultured story, but is it actually the lived experience of the employee?
And I also think it's so hard to remove your biases when you have no research to go back on.
Yeah.
And nobody thinks about learning more than L&D think about learning.
Mm-hmm.
So then we end up with these personas that apparently all really love to learn and they all want to learn all the time and they're really enthusiastic about learning. And I know everyone listening to this and everyone I've spoken to today and yesterday, people don't want to learn. We need to make them want to learn.
Yeah.
So if we're just doing it based on assumptions, if we're not bothering to do the actual research and spend the time doing it, we end up with personas that aren't actually worth the time or effort that you've even put in, like the 5 minutes you took putting your assumptions on a bit of paper. It's not worth it because you may as well then just market based on your assumptions.
What we said before, like good data in, good data out.
Exactly, yeah.
So ultimately, if you're going to cut corners, it will come out in the woodwork in other ways.
Yeah.
And the reality is, we're not asking you to speak to every single one of your employees. Like a small cross-section will at least give you a starting point and a springboard to build out some of these personas. And then you can start to iterate them and evolve them as you kind of test and learn.
Like I said in our session today, I was joined by Emma Hunter from Capgemini University. And I've done a lot of work with them. They've got 340,000 employees. I have not spoken to every employee.
So
like, you know what? Feels like I have. I haven't.
Yep.
I've probably spoken to maybe 250, 300 people. And that's over the space of a few years. So like different projects. That's a drop in the ocean, but it also gave us so much valuable data. And even from that small segment, I was noticing trends.
Yes.
I could create personas that really work. And then we created the personas, I think it was about 2 years ago now, and we've just updated them.
Yep.
We've just refreshed them based on our learning and understanding. Personas don't need to be a static box. It's not like you do it first time and done. Like that's my audience, can't change it.
Yeah.
People change, people evolve, and we should be checking in on them, maybe.
And organizations change as well. Like the workforce shifts as there's attrition, new people come on. Again, even just generational changes can have an impact on culture.
Yeah.
Can have an impact on attitudes towards many aspects. It's not just learning.
Well, I was talking to somebody about an hour ago that said, like, I've got a really young team and a lot of Gen Z, and apparently it's not cool to do pub quizzes anymore. And I was like, well, I'm not cool.
Uh-oh.
I love a pub quiz.
Me too.
But yeah, like generational changes, organizational changes, the world changing. But when we first started talking about all this, COVID was still very prevalent in our day-to-day lives.
Yep.
And we spoke about that a lot, about how that has changed organizations. Changes still happen, whether we've got a global pandemic or not.
Yeah.
We need to be really aware of that. And that should be coming through in your research, in everything you do. we need to make sure we're actually putting the time and effort in to actually do the research. That's what it comes down to.
And I said to someone today, even if that means, it might have been the same person who I said we didn't have time for. I said, even if that means once a week, 8 weeks, you have one focus group with 8 to 10 employees. You know, we always say to our clients, make sure that it's a good cross section of your organization. It's representative of your employees. So I don't want just everyone from finance or just everyone from marketing.
And definitely not just everyone from learning.
And you want different tenures. You want different seniorities. You want a good representation of your organization because, you know, again, you find commonalities outside of job title that unify people way beyond what they do for the organization. So you need to make sure that you are having those conversations. And if doing what we do, where we do like 20 or 30 hours in a short period of time, is very intensive. That's our job. You can't do that. As you said today, marketing's often done as a sideline to your existing job.
And L&D are busy. We've never disputed that. We've never said you're not. Like, we know how busy L&D is. But it's like you said at the start, like, we have to make the time for this stuff.
Yeah. Oh, do proper data capture. So I would say my main top tip when you start doing this is keep the focus groups under 12 to allow people to actually have a good voice.
Yeah.
Don't just focus on learning-oriented questions, i.e., how do you find that learning? Do you enjoy learning? No.
How often do you log into the LMS?
People aren't very good at actually accurately describing their own behaviors anyhow. So like it's kind of a pointless exercise. But what you do want to be asking is the same questions
on each focus group
so that you start getting a pool of data.
And top tip from my side as well, when I'm actually conducting focus group sessions, I always start with something quite like big and broad. And maybe it is like, okay, so like, when was the last time you went on training calls? What was it? How did you like it? Because they're coming to an L&D focus group. They're expecting to talk about learning and development. And actually some of the stuff we need to find from them is a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And like, sometimes it's a little bit awkward to be like, what inspires you to get out of bed in the morning? Like, how do you know you're successful in life? And I think starting with the general questions and then digging deeper. So you've built that trust up with something that's a bit softer, a bit easier.
You know, I always
not as intense.
I always start with what's pissing you off at work right now.
I love that.
Because people will always vocalize what's doing their heads in. And it will get like, because I think, again, that you're acting as a facilitator in these environments. And again, might be something that's a bit uncomfortable if you're not used to doing that.
Yeah.
So having an icebreaker, one that you know people are going to be vocal about. Once people start talking, it's very, very, very occasionally you and I will message each other and be like, that was a really difficult.
Oh, God. I literally had one where nobody spoke to me. Yeah. So, like, we've had the words.
Yeah. And that's a reality. I think ultimately you need to make sure that you're being consistent with your questioning and doing something to start those conversations. And then take a step back and really let them talk.
And it's what Emma said earlier as well, making sure that you're trying to find somebody that can be as impartial as possible. And I know that's hard in an internal environment because you're all colleagues, you're all employees who work for different like business functions and that. And it's easier for us coming in as an external person, like people trust us that we're not going to go and gossip to the HR manager to be like, oh, did you know what so-and-so said? Yeah. But try to facilitate that really trusting environment where people feel confident and happy to just say, hey, this is how I feel. But also, focus groups aren't the start and the end of your market research. No. You need to be validating your findings with surveys if you can. I know getting people to answer surveys is just as hard, but it's easier than getting people to turn up to a focus group. You need to be looking at like the data that already exists in the business. We are so lucky in L&D. If you talk to a marketer about data, we have none. When you're marketing externally, like what do you know about your audience? You have to do a lot of effort. Yeah. You have HR data. Yep. You know how many employees are in your organization. You probably can get like age ranges and locations and all of that from the HR team. You're not asking, oh, what did Ashley get on our last performance review? Like we're not going to that level. But we can get general information that really supports and guides and validates what we have found out. Yeah. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, so you need to supplement that qual and quant, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's our key takeaways, really. Yeah. I'm very conscious it's getting quite noisy.
It is, although let's see how good my editing is, because they might not realise it's noisy. But people are coming out the breakout room now. So I think that is the end of our very first ever live podcast together. Woo-woo! Only taken 4 years. Look at us. Woo! We will be back very, very soon with a podcast that's recorded in our typical way of us being at home, separate offices, you up north, me down south. We'll be very happy. But we've got some good interviews lined up as well, haven't we?
So yeah, we got some new features coming. I've got a couple of really interesting. I've got a branding person.
Oh,
so
I've got a script editor that wants to come on as well, which I think will be really interesting about storytelling. So big things coming with the podcast. We'll stop waiting on now because people are now looking at us. We'll see you on the next podcast, guys. Bye.